The president called you a disgruntled employee.
I am not disgruntled. I am frustrated at a lack of leadership. I am frustrated at a lack of urgency to get a head start on developing life-saving tools for Americans. I'm frustrated at our inability to be heard as scientists. Those things frustrate me.
As early as January, emails show he was sounding the alarm, first about the critical shortage of N95 masks.
We see too many doctors and nurses now dying. And I was thinking that we could have done more to get those masks and those supplies to them sooner. And if we had, would they still be alive today? It's a horrible thought to think about the time that passed where we could have done something and we didn't.
You believe you were retaliated against because you raised concerns about hydroxychloroquine.
Yes, I do.
You'd been sounding the alarm about the lack of testing platforms. This sounded like an important job.
That's an important initiative. Nora, I'm the director of BARDA. To take me out of our organization focused on drugs and vaccines and diagnostics in the middle of a pandemic, the worst public health crisis that our country has faced in a century, and decapitate the BARDA organization to move me over to a very small, focused project of any scale, of any level of importance, is not responsible. Didn't make sense.
This is virologist Rick Bright, the former head of the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA, speaking out after having been removed from his role in April after criticizing the administration's handling of the coronavirus outbreak. Bright filed an 89-page whistleblower complaint with the Office of Special Counsel, alleging both mismanagement with regard to the government's response to the crisis, as well as retaliation in removing him from his post. Dr. Bright had been sounding warnings as early as January for the necessary resources to develop drugs and vaccines to counter the emerging pandemic, and yet was confronted with opposition from department superiors, including Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar. According to the complaint, on January 23rd, Bright met with Azar to press for urgent access to funding, personnel, and clinical specimens, including viruses, that would be necessary to develop treatments. But Azar, quote, asserted that the United States would be able to contain the virus through travel bans. From there, Bright was cut out of future department meetings related to coronavirus. And as we all know, the travel ban clearly did the trick and saved the United States from getting any cases or deaths. Bright also sounded the alarms on the fact that the administration officials were repeatedly pressuring him to steer millions of dollars in contracts to, quote, companies with political connections to the administration, including a drug company tied to a friend of who else but Jared Kushner. And the final straw came when Trump began pushing hydroxychloroquine, the anti-malaria drug, as a, quote, game changer. Bright refused to jump on board when administration officials pressed for its widespread usage, despite the fact that it was never approved for use treating coronavirus. And that point was driven home when it was revealed that chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine were later found to be dangerous, and were even leading to cardiac arrest. It's almost like there's a reason we should wait for medical professionals to actually vet the drugs that we take. Now, Trump, for his part, dismissed the improper removal of Bright, referring to him merely as a disgruntled employee.
The federal watchdog found that Rick Bright's removal from HHS was improper. They're blocking that move right now. Have you seen that report, and do you have any response to it?
I don't know. To me, he looks like a disgruntled employee. I don't know who he is, but to me, he's a disgruntled employee. And if people are that unhappy, they shouldn't work. If you're unhappy with a company, you shouldn't work there. Go out, get something else. But to me, he's a disgruntled guy, and I hadn't heard great things about him either.
But it wasn't that he was a disgruntled employee. He is a scientist who actually knows what he's talking about. It's Trump who is opting to promote dangerous drugs and silence public health experts whose informed advice clashed with his politicking and grifting. The truth is that Trump was so hellbent on pushing untested drugs because he didn't want to put in the work necessary to actually mitigate the spread of the virus. He didn't bother establishing a nationwide testing system, he didn't want to do contact tracing, he didn't want to invest in any of the other methods that the countries that successfully overcame the virus invested in. Instead, he wanted the easy route, and the easy route for him was to pick a miracle cure. These drugs already existed, the work was already done, and so Trump decided that that would be easy enough for him, which is why we were subjected to day after day of unvetted medical advice on national television from a guy who doesn't know how to spell hamburger, which at the very least should probably preclude you from being able to play doctor. If this government had any concern for the American people, it would reinstate Dr. Bright and defer to experts like him instead of the guy doling out contracts to help make his buddies rich and searching under rocks for miracle cures. But I wouldn't hold my breath because, as we've learned time after time after time, Trump's only priority is helping his friends and helping himself.